Okay. So, good evening, everybody. We got another big crowd tonight. This is good. I like to see this turnout. These are large crowds for Brother Bernardine presentations. So, welcome to our second night of capstone presentations here at Bishop Kelly High School. We have 5 seniors who are set to present their projects for you tonight. But before we do that, and before we get started, as we do with all events at Bishop Kelly, I would like to start tonight with prayer. So if you all please join me. Let us remember that we are always in the holy presence of God. In the name of the Father, the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. God of all, we give you thanks for the occasion to gather this evening. We are grateful for the gifts that you have given us and for the opportunity to be part of the Bishop Kelly community. You have generously blessed these students, Aryn, Elle, Katie, Sam, and Will. Touch their hearts so that they use their talents for the benefit of others and guide their path as they become the people that you call them to be. We offer this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. Mary Queen of Peace, St. John Baptist de La Salle, live Jesus in our hearts forever. All right, so once again, welcome. Our 5 seniors presenting tonight have a variety of capstone projects. No 2 of them are the same. As I said last week, this is a labor of love for these students. It started with a research paper in their sophomore year. They worked on it during their junior year, had some delays via COVID and lots of other things, right, that came up. But every single one of them persevered through it and have a spectacular final result that they would like to share with you all tonight. So without further ado, we will get started on those. So our first presenter tonight, let me recast my screen. Our first presenter tonight is Elle Stanger. Elle is the daughter of Owen and Chris Stanger. Elle is a National Merit semifinalist and a National Indigenous Scholar. Last year, she was chosen as the Outstanding AP Language Student of the Year. At Bishop Kelly, Elle is the president of NHS and French Club, a varsity athlete on the golf team, a member of the Academic Bowl team, class board, and Athletic Leadership Council. She's a Link Crew leader and Comet Ambassador and a published writer in the BK Ambassador magazine. She's also a volunteer at the North Tulsa Learning Center. In her free time, which I'm not sure when that is, Elle likes to read, play golf, play tennis, and pickleball with her friends. She's a parishioner and nursery employee at St. Anne's Catholic Church. Elle's college applications include UNC Chapel Hill, USC, UCLA, UC Irvine, UC San Diego, Notre Dame, Stanford, OU, and TU. In the fall, she plans to study journalism and political science. Elle Stanger.
Hello everyone, my name is Elle Stanger. I'm a second-generation Vietnamese immigrant, and my Brother B project is the innocent victims of the Vietnam War and my family's story. So when I was growing up, my grandparents would take care of me whenever my mom would work, and they've been my biggest supporters throughout my entire life, basically, and they've had a really big impact on me. So in the spring of 1975, my grandparents immigrated from Vietnam to the United States during the fall of Saigon. And my grandpa was in the South Vietnamese Air Force, so he had been to the US previously for training at Fort Lackland, Texas. And whenever my grandparents and their 4 kids, which included my mom and her 3 brothers, when she was just 3 years old, they were sent to Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, where they lived at a refugee camp for several months until a local Methodist church sponsored them, and they were sent to Oklahoma City. Okay, so the issues that I chose to focus on for my Brother B project were the humane crises that came about due to the Vietnam War. There was chemical warfare and major casualties, especially that of civilians. There are about 1.2 million civilian casualties. So these were people that were the innocent bystanders of the war. They didn't choose for the war to happen, and they were harmed because of it. And I chose specifically to focus on these people in my project. So for my quote from Brother B, I chose, "Each day is the scholar of yesterday." And by that, I mean that we can learn from the humane crises that were the issues from the Vietnam War and use it for a better future. So these were the two theses that I came up for my project. Every person has a story that we can learn a lesson from. Therefore, making voices heard can positively impact the present and future generations. And in times of conflict, it is important not to forget the innocent bystanders, especially the children. So my project began, and I wanted to highlight Vietnamese immigrants and the Tulsa community, but my first interview was actually with my grandparents. And the more that I learned from them, the more that I decided to focus more on their story, and that's kind of what my project turned into. So this was the process. It was mostly research, interviewing, and editing, and I'm going to go more in depth into these. So for my sophomore research paper, I focused on the effect that the Vietnam War had on the human population that was involved. So firstly, I talked about Agent Orange. Agent Orange was a herbicide that was used to kill vegetation, mostly so that US troops could see the enemy, because most of the warfare in the Vietnam War was in the jungle and they couldn't see those that were coming at them. So what happened was the US troops dumped gallons and gallons of this chemical onto the environment, which obviously led to negative consequences not only for the environment, but also for the people, because the chemical ended up going into the water, and it led to several diseases. It caused cancer. It caused cancer not only for people who lived in Vietnam, but also for the US veterans when they came back. And it also causes birth defects, which can still be seen in Vietnam to this day. Another event that I focused on in my paper was Operation Baby Lift. So in 1975, President Gerald Ford signed an order for the mass evacuation of Vietnamese children from Vietnam. But what happened was that many of these children were taken from their families with no record of who they were. And a tragedy happened whenever the first plane that took off actually crashed, which led to the death of 138 people. Most of them were Vietnamese children. I also focused on the immigration experience, where I interviewed my mom for the paper. And lastly, I focused on the children of the dust. So the children of the dust are the orphans of the war. Most of them are the children of American soldiers and Vietnamese women. And once the war ended, their American soldier fathers left them behind, and they ended up being the dust, or bui doi in Vietnamese, of society. So because they were not fully Vietnamese and they were not fully American, they had no place to belong in society. So they became illiterate, they were beggars, they were homeless. And just to put this into perspective, we see homeless people all the time, but what we don't see are homeless children. And that's what these kids were. They were children, and they really touched my heart because I mean, I am a Mare Asian too, and to see these kids that were like me being on the streets and having no human dignity at all was something that really struck me. So my project turned into something else whenever my mom told me that my grandpa actually wrote a book about the children of the dust. And this book had been sitting on my grandpa's shelf for 40 years. So actually, my grandpa, whenever he lived in Vietnam, encountered these children. So for high school, my grandpa traveled 100 kilometers to the neighboring town of Nha Trang, where he studied. And one day, when he was off of school, he came across a young widow and her son who was just 8 years old. And because the widow was suffering from the loss of her husband who died during the war, she begged my grandfather to take her son, Ben, out for food. And so for 2 days, my grandfather took Ben out for a meal. But on the third day, whenever my grandfather went out to pick Ben up, the widow and Ben were gone. And something a neighbor said, the neighbor just brushed it off. The neighbor said, "Oh, the woman, she probably got kidnapped and sold into a brothel somewhere. And the kid, he's probably just out in the dust somewhere." And that was something that really struck my grandfather. He was shocked by the disregard for human dignity that society showed these children of the dust. And so for the next few years, my grandpa continued to look for Ben, but he never found him. What he did find were other children of the dust, and he showed them love and compassion. Whenever he wasn't studying, he was reading to the children and teaching them how to read. So that began my journey with the children of the dust. My grandpa, whenever he moved to the US, he left behind Vietnam, but what he didn't leave behind were the memories that he had with those kids. And so he decided to write a novel in Vietnamese called The Children of the Dust. So my journey with the Children of the Dust began whenever my grandpa actually translated the novel to English. And my grandpa's first language is not English. So there were some grammar mistakes that I had to fix, and it also involved historical research. So as you can see on the screen, the novel begins in 1968, right after the battles of the Tet Offensive, which were North Vietnamese attacks which severely damaged Saigon. In the book, there's also a unique cultural perspective. My grandpa's Buddhist, so there's many Buddhist values like compassion and selflessness that are major themes of the novel. There's also music in the novel. There's a scene where Ben and the other children of the dust go into a bar to shoe shine for American soldiers, and it's playing Let's Twist Again by the famous American singer Chubby Checker. And then there's also another scene where there's a young wounded soldier on the street, and he's singing a famous Vietnamese song by the songwriter Pham Duy. So for the interview, I prepared a lot of questions, and what I learned from the interview really opened up my perspective and really made me appreciate all that my grandparents did like 10 times more. Just hearing their story itself was amazing for me. And during that interview, my grandpa clarified a bunch of dates, as well as locations, as you can see on the notebook. And then I also got to see a lot of cool photos that my grandpa showed me from his time as a soldier. That photo in the middle is a photo of my grandpa and his friend at Fort Lackland Air Base in Texas when they were learning how to fly airplanes. So like I said, there were several grammar and wording things that I kind of had to change. Right here is an example. As you can see, what I changed was subtle, but I think it's that kind of makes the novel into something that's readable and something that can be published. It also involves rewriting some sentences and chapters. My grandpa and I actually decided to change the ending once I discussed it with him. So it was really fun being able to edit the novel. Okay, so my end goal is to publish the novel The Children of the Dust on Amazon Publishing. It's free, and I also hope to be able to educate people more on these like casualties of the war that never really had anybody to speak for them. And being the talented man that he is, my grandfather is actually sketching the cover of the novel, because why not be just an author when you can also be an illustrator? All right, so my main takeaway was it's just been an honor to do this for my grandpa. I mean, he means a lot to me, and it's good to be a voice for my brothers and sisters, the children of the dust, who never really had anybody to speak for them, especially Ben. And if you get anything from this presentation, I just want to tell you that if the world needs anything, it's more compassionate people. Yeah. So I want to say thank you to Miss Tyler and Miss Bendel, my mentor, Dr. Grew, who really helped me with the English aspect of it, my fellow scholars for always supporting me and making me the best version of myself, my mom, dad, and my sister Eva for reading the book, and most importantly, my grandparents, especially my grandpa, Maivo. He's the author of the book. He lived the story. I'm just the person that's telling it, and I really appreciate all that he's done for me, and I couldn't thank him enough. Okay, so to end my presentation, I'm actually going to read the first part of the first chapter of the novel, and Justin will help me pass them out. Justin is going to pass them out for me. Okay, I'll start. Chapter 1, Saigon, Autumn of 1968. The weather is rather mild due to the occasional rains before monsoon season. In the sky, gray clouds are shifting loosely like massive icebergs in a vast bright blue ocean, carrying with them the humidity in the atmosphere. Kim Lee walks slowly on the wet sidewalk and avoids stepping over little pools of water left behind from last night's rain. The rows of tamarind trees along both sides of Tong Nhat Boulevard leading to Saigon Zoo hang with raindrops shining like pearls, When the gentle wind comes by, the raindrops shower down once more. Kim wipes the raindrops off her face and continues walking. Today is the first time the young lady of Saigon College has a chance to get out of her house to see Dan, her friend enrolled in medical school, before he joins the military. Since the Tet Offensive battles that raged over the capital caused great casualties for the people and their properties, Kim and Dan have not seen each other regularly. Kim keeps to herself at home like a good Zen disciple in a meditation chamber. Meanwhile, Dan is busy helping wounded people throughout the city. As Kim approaches the gate of the zoo, she sees Dan waiting for her from a distance. Today, Dan looks rather strange with his hair cut short, military style. She admires him not only for his personality, but also for his love for his country. Dan is the youngest son in a wealthy family. His older brother and sister work in the family business in Vietnam, and his parents live and work for their business in France. While Dan could go overseas for school and avoid the draft like other young adults in affluent families, he chooses to stay home and do his duty like the other young men in the nation. Kim, on the other hand, is the only girl in a well-known family. In fact, her grandfather was a member of Emperor Bao Dai's cabinet, and her parents work in a Vietnamese embassy overseas. So she now lives with Mama Lam, her childhood wet nurse, in her family's home in the center of Saigon. She greets Dan with a smile, saying, "Hi, Dan, how are you? Were you waiting on me long?" "No, I just got here a few minutes ago." Kim glances up at his hair. "You look different today, Dan." "Well, I'm not a student anymore. Tomorrow, I join the military academy." As Kim and Dan speak at the entrance of the zoo, a large number of young peddlers rush in and surround them, asking them to buy something, their voices still carrying the high pitch of young vocal cords. "Miss, buy from me, chewing gum, peanuts. Cigarettes, sir, I have all American brand. Pall Mall, Winston, Camel." Noticing that Kim is irked by the little peddlers, Dan clears the way for her to enter the gate with the tickets he bought a few minutes before. Once inside the zoo, she feels better with the quiet atmosphere and is amused by the singing of the bright birds in the trees and the others bathing in a little pool of rainwater on the sidewalk. The two walk side by side before the temple of national ancestor Hung Vung, watching flowers and the landscape along their way. They chose the zoo for today's meeting because it is one of the very few places in Saigon that has escaped being damaged by the battles of the Tet Offensive during the spring of 1967. It also happens to be the only place in the heart of crowded Saigon where one can come to relax and get a breath of fresh air. For a moment they walk in silence until Kim Lee looks at Dan and asks, "Tomorrow you leave home early for Thu Duc Infantry, don't you?" Dan's dark eyes look straight at Kim Lee and he replies in a soft voice, "Yes, Kim, some of my friends and I are going together. Thu Duc isn't far from Saigon, so I can come to see you, right? And you can go back home every time you leave from training school." "That's right, Kim," Dan replies with a smile. "It's the reason I chose Thu Duc instead of Dalat, 200 kilometers away. It'd be too far from home." Kim Lee begins to wonder, in such a time of war, once you go out, you never hope to come back. So why is Dan still optimistic? He seems to have no worry at all. She begins to remember her friends who joined the military and never came back. Dan notices the sight of sadness on Kim Lee's face. "You aren't feeling well, are you?" "The humidity is bothering me. I feel a little thirsty. That's all." Dan finds a dry stone bench surrounded by flowers. He asks Kim Lee to sit down and wait while he goes to a beverage stand in the distance to buy drinks for them. Kim agrees and sits down, trying to calm herself. The solitude of the place soothes her mind greatly. In her relaxation, she carelessly puts her purse aside and reclines against the bench. Suddenly, a quick whooshing noise from behind puts her in a state of shock. She sees a boy, about 8 years old, wearing an oversized yellow t-shirt, snatch her purse and dash away in a hurry. He disappears into the dense shrubbery. Kim Lee cries out, "Boy, my brother, give me back my purse, please." Answering her cry is only the movement of the shrub after the boy has rushed through them. Dan, who has heard her distress, races back and asks him what happened. "A kid snatched my purse and disappeared behind the bushes." Dan manages to calm Kim Lee with his strong voice. "Stay here, I'll get the purse back for you." He runs in the direction that Kim Lee pointed out. On hearing purse snatch, several tourists encircle Kim Lee and ask her numerous questions, which puts her on edge. Nervously, she proclaims to the crowd, "Nothing serious was stolen, just a purse with few coins in it." Giving Kim Lee their pitiful looks, the crowd scatters as quickly as it appeared. In this time, kids stealing and snatching purses in public is more or less a common occurrence. Kim Lee's peaceful silence is restored as the crowd departs. She hears the sound of the raindrops falling with the breeze breathing by. The momentary stillness of the quiet bench is disturbed by the reappearance of the boy in the yellow shirt. He shyly steps up to her and drops the purse in her lap. The boy then turns and walks away, but before he disappears completely, he turns around and looks at her with large, apologetic eyes. Then he turns his back and runs as fast as he can, disappearing once more into the bushes. Do we have any questions? Yes?
Are your grandparents here?
No, they are not. Ms. Pollard?
What was their reaction to you editing this book?
My grandpa was just really excited. He was really excited to show me his book. And yeah, he's just really excited. He said that he wants me to sell it. Katie?
Why did you change the ending?
I don't want to give away the ending, but it just didn't make sense to me. And we ended up changing it just because it made more sense with the novel. Oh, it's Andrew. Sorry.
How much of a challenge was it to edit the entire thing? Like, did you space it out well, or did you have to just sit down and do it for
Well, I get really picky about word choice, so I would just, it took about like 2 or 3 hours per chapter of the book. It was just being able to sit down and just get through it. Mr. Franz? I would say mostly it was just telling the story that he wrote. I did add some like imagery, more description, just because when you have broken English, it's harder to have like more descriptive words. But yeah, it was mostly just keeping the story that he wrote. Lauren?
How long is the book, roughly?
It's 61 pages. It's 13 chapters, and then a preface and an epilogue. Father Zui?
Have you ever visited Vietnam?
No, I want to with my grandparents. Yeah, let's go on a trip, Father. Any more? Okay, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Elle. I apologize that clicker was not working for you. I don't know what happened there. All right. Our second presenter of the night is Katie. Let me get her thing going here, then I can introduce her. Okay, I'm going to test it this time. It helps if you turn your technology on before you use it. That was the problem, Elle. I didn't have it on. I apologize. Okay, Katie's parents are Jim and Karen Musshafen. Katie is a Link Crew leader. She's the NHS Teacher Appreciation Coordinator and plays both club and Bishop Kelly soccer. She was selected as the AP Government Student of the Year her sophomore year. When she's not playing soccer, Katie is an avid reader. She's a parishioner at St. Mary's and a volunteer at Nightlight Tulsa, stating that she likes serving there because it's a place where those who lost their support system can sit down with friends and have a hot meal. Katie has applied to OSU, OU, the University of Alabama, the University of South Alabama, Wingate, and Marshall. She plans to study exercise science with a pre-physical therapy focus. So we ended our last presentation with a story, and I think we're going to start this one with one too. So, Katie.
So, we're going to go on a bear hunt. We are going to catch a big one. It is such a beautiful day. We're not scared. Uh-oh, grass. Long, wavy grass. We can't go over it, and we can't go under it. So we got to go through it. Swishy, swashy, swishy, swashy, swishy, swashy. We're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. It's such a beautiful day. We're not scared. Uh-oh, a river, a deep, cold river. We can't go over it, and we can't go under it, so we gotta go through it. Splishy, splashy, splishy, splashy, splishy, splashy. We're going on a bear hunt. We're gonna catch a big one. It is such a beautiful day. We're not scared. Uh-oh, mud. Thick, oozy mud. We can't go over it, and we can't go under it. We gotta go through it. Squish, squelch, squish. We're going on a bear hunt. We're gonna catch a big one. It's such a beautiful day. We're not scared. Uh-oh, a forest. A big, dark forest. We can't go over it, and we can't go under it. We gotta go through it. Stumble, trip. We're going on a bear hunt. We're gonna catch a big one. It's such a beautiful day. We're definitely not scared. Uh-oh, a snowstorm, a swirling, whirling snowstorm. We can't go over it, and we can't go under it. We gotta go through it. We're going on a bear hunt. We're gonna catch a big one. It's not quite a beautiful day anymore, but we're not scared. Uh-oh, a cave. A narrow, gloomy cave. We can't go over it, and we can't go under it. We gotta go through it. Tiptoe, tiptoe, tiptoe. Wait! What is that? 1 shiny wet nose, 2 furry brown ears, 2 big googly eyes. It's a bear! Quick, back through the cave, tiptoe, tiptoe, through the snowstorm, through the forest, stumble, trip, through the mud, squish, squelch, squish, squelch, through the river, splish, splash, splish, splash, through the grass, swishy, swashy, swishy, swashy. Quick, up to the front door, open the door, up the stairs. We forgot to close the front door. Back down the stairs, close the door, up the stairs, into the room, into the bed, under the covers. We are never going on a bear hunt ever again. So if you didn't get the memo, my project is over storytelling. So to start us off, I want to start with a quote by Margaret Atwood. She is a Canadian poet and author. She wrote The Handmaid's Tale, which is a series on Hulu, and Alias Grace, which is now a series on Netflix. So it says, "You're never going to kill storytelling because it is built in the human plan. We come with it." So most of the time when you think of storytelling, you probably just think of the fairy tales that you were told before you went to bed. But really, storytelling is the basic form of communication between humans. When you come home and your parents ask you how your day went, and you tell them how your day went, you're telling the story of your day. And when you go to your high school reunions and you're just reminiscing on all the fun things you did, you're just telling the stories of your past. So really, it's just how we communicate. So, what is the deal with storytelling? Why is it important? So, Storytelling is important because they teach us how to cope with life. When you connect with a character, either in a book or a movie or through a story, you watch them go through conflict and resolution. And when you relate to these characters, you can take the solutions that they apply to their own problems that probably apply to your own life, and you can take those solutions and you can put them into action in your own life. So next, it's preserving culture. For example, we have the Bible, which a lot of us probably know. The Bible was, especially the Old Testament, was told for many generations before it was ever written down. And the same with the Odyssey. The Odyssey was actually a poem that was memorized by a poet or a singer, and they would play it, and so it was a song, a lot before it was ever words. Next, they teach us empathy. So when you are reading or watching a character who their life experience is different than your own, and they go through different things, maybe they were born into a different situation, and you still feel compassion for them and you can still relate, you take that into the real world and you can take that compassion and show it to other people whose lives aren't like your own. So before I get into project goals, I probably should tell you about my project. So essentially, I told stories to little kids. During the month of February, on Wednesday mornings, I went to Francis Scott Key Elementary, and I told the stories to a third grade class. Their school started at 7:45, so I was able to get there, and the stories would probably last for 30 minutes, and then I was able to get to school because of late start. So what were my goals? First and foremost, I really just wanted to entertain. That was like the whole entire focus of it. I wanted the kids to go to school in the morning on Wednesdays and have something to look forward to. I wanted them to enjoy being there and listening to the stories. And then I wanted to teach them because all good stories have a moral. And so through the stories that I told them, I was hoping that they would learn a little something. And then lastly, I wanted them to love to learn to read and to listen to stories. So, how did I choose a school? Well, I chose Francis Scott Key, and it's in my neighborhood, so it was very convenient to go to. It's also in a lower income area, and when you have a school that's in a lower income area, that often means that parents might be working 2 jobs or pulling long hours, and they might be super exhausted when they come home. So a lot of times parents in lower income areas, education is not the focus with their children, so they're not going to be reading bedtime stories or helping them do their homework. So I was trying to help make up for that loss of like reading time by telling a story. It's also a Tulsa public school, and it has a large Hispanic population. So with a large Hispanic population, that means that a lot of kids, they're English language learners. They probably were born in a household that speaks Spanish as a first language. The prime way that you learn a language, especially a different one, is just to listen to it. So by hearing somebody speak like a story, that can help you develop your vocabulary and grammar. So, what makes a story worth telling and what makes it good? Well, for starters, you gotta pick a good story. So you have to pick one that's age appropriate. You don't wanna be telling a story that's super above or under their grade level. And something that is kind of applicable, the moral and the events are applicable to the kids. Next is showing emotion. It's important that when you're saying something sad, that you show that in your posture and your voice and your face. And at the same time, like when it's something happy, you also want to show that. You don't want to be like, it was her birthday. She opened all the gifts. You want to be like, it was her birthday, and she had candles and cake, and she blew out all the candles, and she wished for a pony. Yay! Next is discipline. So a great piece of advice that I received was, don't be afraid to keep control and discipline. Show them you and the story deserve respect. So it was very difficult for me to discipline because I was like in an awkward power balance between being older than the kids, but also being younger than the teachers in the room. So I tried my best, but I probably could have done better at the discipline part. And then next was to connect. I wanted to show the kids that I was there for them, and I wanted to have a genuine interest. I didn't want it to just be check mark the box of what I wanted to do. I wanted to enjoy it, and I wanted them to enjoy it. So these are the 4 stories that I read, and I'm going to give you a little overview of what they're about. So the first story that I read was The Rain Babies. So The Rain Babies is about an older couple who was never able to have a child. And one night there's a mysterious moon shower. And the next day when they wake up, there's 10 tiny toe-sized babies babies in the meadow. And they take care of them and they protect them against all like these natural elemental occurring events. And in return for how well they took care of the babies, Mother Moonshower gives them a real baby. Next is the true story of the 3 little pigs, which is the story of the 3 little pigs from the wolf's point of view. It turns out that he really just wanted to borrow a cup of sugar from his neighbors while he had a pretty bad cold. The next is The Legend of the Indian Paintbrush. This story is about a Native American boy named Little Gopher, and in a vision he sees that he is called to paint the colors of the sunset. But no matter how hard he tried, none of the natural pigments like flowers and berries were ever pigmented enough to paint the colors of the sun. So one day when he is doing his coming of age test, he must spend the night outside on a hill, and there on the hill are all these many different paintbrushes in the ground, and they are the colors of the sunset. And he's able to paint them, and then the next day when he tries to show his tribe the paintbrushes, they have turned into flowers. And that's the legend of how we have the Indian paintbrush flowers. Next was the children's favorite, Grandma Chicken Legs. It's a story based off of Baba Yaga. So a young girl is sent to Grandma Chicken Legs' house, who is an evil witch in the woods, because she has to borrow a sewing needle. And there, Grandma Chicken Legs wants her to have some dinner, but she is the dinner. So, the little girl shows kindness to Grandma Chicken Legs, dog, and cat, and because of this kindness, they help her escape from getting eaten by the evil witch. So, some of my successes were the kids were very interested in the weirder stories that I told. So, the Rain Babies and Grandma Chicken Legs, they had never heard them before, so that piqued their interest a lot. And next, they were always excited to see me. I would walk down the hall in the morning to get to the room where I told the stories, and some little girls would be coming back from the bathroom or trying to get to their classroom, and they'd look at each other and they go, "The storyteller is here." And then they'd run to their classroom, and I could hear in the classroom them going, "The storyteller's here, the storyteller's here." So that made me feel good about myself. And then I always enjoyed when I made them laugh. So some failures is, so this 3rd grade class was 2 classes combined. And when I told the Legend of the Indian Paintbrush, half of the class, or one of the classes had read that in school the week before. So they already knew how it went, and I didn't have a backup story. So they just had to sit through it twice. And then they always wanted a scary story. They begged me every single time to tell them a scary story. And I was like, I probably would get in trouble if I did that. And next, so when I told the stories, I did not show the pictures because I wanted them to imagine what the story was like. But afterwards, when I was done, I would say, okay, now we can look at the pictures and compare of like what you thought it was like versus how they illustrated it. And the kids who were off in the corner sulking, not paying attention to the story, when I said pictures, they cared. They perked right up to look at the pictures. So in the end, I did a survey for what their favorite story was. 60% said their favorite story was Grandma Chicken Legs, and then 20% The Rain Babies, and then 12% The True Story of the Three Little Pigs, and then last, The Legend of the Indian Paintbrush. I think they liked Grandma Chicken Legs because it was a little scary because it was about an evil witch. So next, like, what did I learn? Well, for starters, service, because during this time in February, I was practicing soccer 5 days a week plus club, and I was also in AP Chemistry and AP Lang, so I had a lot of homework. And it was really hard to have the discipline to, after my homework, in my free time, to sit down and memorize these stories so I could have a good delivery when I went to the schools. It was also hard because I gave up my Wednesday sleep-in, which is very, it's like a nice little midweek pick-me-up. But in the end, it was so worth it because those little sacrifices brought me and the kids a lot of joy. And the next was patience. It was hard to like have patience with myself when things went wrong, especially with the Indian paintbrush, and to not get flustered. Next was confidence. So having the confidence to show emotion, because sometimes it could be really hard it's hard to public speak even in front of third graders. So having the confidence to do that and to show emotion and be vulnerable with the stories, as well as having the confidence to discipline. Okay, so I want to say a huge thank you to Grandma Spider. She did this she read stories to me at my elementary school when I was in first, and second, and third grade. She was my mentor for this project. She helped me, encouraged me when I needed it. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, Sarah? So, because I would procrastinate, I would normally, so since I told them on a Wednesday, I'd probably start memorizing Monday or Tuesday night, and it would probably take about 2 hours each night, because most of the books were like around like 24 pages long that I would try to get the gist of. Yeah, Aryn? Definitely Grandma Chicken Legs, because it was funny. And they were really into it, so it's good when you get like positive audience feedback. Anybody else? Well, Grandma Spider. She's an obvious, I have to say that. All right, perfect. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. So if you noticed any of that, there was some stellar photography in there by me. I had the opportunity to go to the Grandma Chicken Legs, and when I was there, they wanted nothing to do with me. I walked into the third grade class, and they just all kind of stood there and went, "Well, you're new." But then when Katie came in, it was like, "Katie!" And then they crowded around her, and it was really pretty. And the teacher also made a comment that she said, "I wish she could come every Wednesday for the whole year." And I thought, I bet Katie does not wish that. But I'm glad that you appreciate her storytelling. Okay, this one's going to also have some setup, so we'll get to that. So our third presenter this evening is Aryn Moore. Aryn is the daughter of Jeff and Aryn Moore. In addition to Brother B, Aryn is not busy at all. Wink, wink. At Bishop Kelly, she is in French Club, a Comet Ambassador, Link Crew leader, a STUCO member, the NHS secretary, the girls soccer manager, a Garden Club member, and a peer mentor. She is an active participant in the drama and musical department and in the BK ministry community. She is a St. Michael's Book Award recipient and is on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame Teen Board and working towards her Gold Award in Girl Scouts. She's very active in her youth group at First United Methodist Church of Broken Arrow. She has applied to TU and Vanderbilt and hopes to pursue a career in law with a major in political science and history. Aryn Moore.
It's okay, I have to pull up my Chromebook anyway for my speaker notes. Well, first, I want to preface that I do have a sinus infection, so if you see me pulling tissues, that's why. It's not contagious, I promise. Anyway. Okay, so hi, I'm Aryn Moore, and my project is called The Roots of Faith. Is this on? No. It's okay. Oh, wait, it's because this is not on it. There we go. Okay, so starting off with why. My whole thing is really about understanding other religions, and why is it important to understanding religions? It's important so that we're not afraid of others. When you don't understand, fear sprouts, and that can cause divisions. Like today's society, religion is a very controversial topic, and it causes a lot of hatred and fear within other people. My Brother B quote that I chose is one of the hardest things to do is listen. And I agree, it is extremely hard to listen, but what's harder is to listen and then to understand what the other person is talking about. Why is religion important? It's important because it's important for people to believe in something. When you believe in a God or yourself or a person, and it gives you hope for the future, and it gives you like a good idea of what's going to happen. And then the big thing that I really grappled with this entire project is that our religion's so different. And my conclusion is no, they're not all that different. A lot of stories are very similar, which I will prove throughout my presentation. And then why did I choose this? It's because I'm a non-Catholic, and I've gone to Catholic school since 6th grade. This has led me to question my own faith and my beliefs because some of them differ than the Catholic faith that I was taught. And this has inspired me to learn about other religions to make sure my faith is the one that I want to have. So getting into my research project, I researched 4. I picked 4 final ones. Different stories from all over the world. I go from South Africa to Native American, to Brazilian, to Norse mythology, Greek and Roman, and I compare that to different stories found in the Bible. And so starting off, I have a couple stories from the Great Spirit, which is a Native American deity. So the Native American Ojibwe tribes, so sorry if I said that wrong, starting off with their creation story is very similar to the Christian story found in Genesis 1. The Creator and God both created the earth from darkness, and it was just them until they brought this up. Then they created the people out of the dirt from the earth and then breathed life into them, which is another comparison between the two stories. Another one is that they have one deity. Native Americans, a lot of them have their tribal beliefs have a lot of I don't want to say gods and goddesses, but they have different spirits would be, but the Great Spirit rules all over them, which is similar to God and his angels ruling over them. It is also believed that the Great Spirit reveals to people things through isolation, fasting, and meditation, which is a common belief throughout the Jewish faith and the Christian faith in the Bible. For example, in Daniel, he fasted and God revealed things to him. And Moses, he was isolated on Mount Sinai and received the 10 Commandments to help the people. My second story from Native American culture is the Mimic people. say that the Great Spirit one day visited Earth and was walking around and found a poor family. And this family, they didn't have much, but they offered food and shelter for the Spirit without knowing who he was. The Spirit was so impressed that he offered a great fortune to these people, and they prospered. There's two similar stories to this in the Bible, and one is Abraham and the three angels. The three angels visited Abraham in disguise, and Abraham offered them food and shelter and water, and the angels blessed Abraham and revealed things about God's plan. Another one is Elisha and a woman from Shunammite. When Elisha would travel near this woman and her family, they were very poor, but they offered what little they had to him to give, and they even built him his own room so he could sleep there whenever he came by. Elijah was so impressed that he asked the woman and her family, what did they want? What is their greatest desire? They asked for a child, and so Elisha prayed to God and fasted and meditated, and the family was blessed with a child. My next story is from Brazilian culture. It's the Brazilian's devil. So most cultures have a take on the red devil with horns and a tail and a pitchfork. But the Brazilian one is how do I describe this? It's like a demon horse with a human torso and horns. It's kind of terrifying. Both faiths believe that the demon, which in Brazilian culture is called Bestafara, they leave their realm and torment the people. So Bestafara leaves the underworld and goes to the forest and torments the people. Anyone who makes eye contact or sees him goes crazy for days. And then the Brazilian, it's goat-like horns, excuse me. And then this is similar to the beast in Revelation 13. They're described very similar, and the way that they act and interact with people is very similar as well. The next one I go to is Pandora's box. I feel like this is a very common one, but Pandora's box is Pandora. The first woman was created from clay, was forged by Hephaestus. Okay, was formed out of clay from the earth, and the gods gifted her a box with all of the bad things in the world, and hope was inside. Her curiosity, they told her not to open it, but her curiosity won, and so she eventually opened it, releasing death and sin and evilness into the world. But the story goes that she shut it so quickly that hope was still inside. This is similar to the Christian's version of Eve. She was tempted by the serpent, and her curiosity won about what the apple and what knowledge of good and evil would taste like, that she bit from the apple and released sin and evil and death and hurt into the world. Pandora's box was not told until the 7th century, though. Eve's story can be traced back to way earlier beyond. And so that can kind of show that Pandora's cannot be the original source of this. There's some similarity, but it can't be the original thing for it. And then, my next one, it's really dark and to kind of see it, but you can kind of make out what it is. It's an elephant at the top, and then a serpent at the bottom. It has the husk, and it's wrapping itself around the tree. This is the South African devil called Grootslang, and it's supposedly as old as the world itself. It's half snake and half elephant. The Grootslang wreaked too much havoc onto the world, and so the gods cursed it and split it up into elephants and snakes. And that's how the South African tribe believe we have elephants and snakes. It said that the snake was able to keep its cunning but was cursed, and the elephant got to keep its size but was clumsy. Clumsiness was its curse. The Christian version of this is again in Genesis 2. It's the serpent with Eve again. The serpent was cunning, and God cursed it, and so it would crawl on its belly for all of its days. It would have to snip at the heel while she crushed at its head. Both stories show the divine care that the deity had for the mankind above all else. They didn't care about this evilness and what it would cause them. They cared about their creation and their people and how it would hurt them. Okay. My next one is from Norse mythology. It's Loki, and it's 2 stories. So the first one on the left, this one, is about Loki being fallen. He was a fallen god and chained in Ragnarok, and a serpent was dripping venom on it for his days until he would break free and cause havoc and would struggle with the gods for power. which is similar to Revelation with the story that Satan will and God will eventually have a battle, so to speak, for the power of the world. And then the second one on the right, that one, is about, again, Loki and his half-brother Balder. Balder was this perfect god. It was Frigg's son, and Frigg was the goddess of the world, and she made everything in the 7 realms promise not to hurt Balder. Loki was jealous of this love and jealous of this perfect half-brother he had, that he convinced someone else to take mistletoe, which is the one thing that could kill Balder, and kill him with it. The gods were so frustrated with Loki at this that they sent him out to Ragnarok, and that Loki had tricked them into killing the brother and kicked him out. This is similar to Satan and Jesus. Satan was jealous of Jesus' perfectness and the love and everything that he represented, that he convinced other people to kill him for that. And then my last story is about the Egyptian, it's more of like a belief instead of a story, it's the Egyptian afterlife. The Egyptian and the Christian afterlife both believe that they wrap their dead anointed with oils and spices in the Bible. So for instance, the women, after Jesus died, would wrap Jesus with spices so that he could be better and go to heaven. They both believe in eternal life, but they believe it's not for everyone. You have to believe in something specific. The Egyptians believe that your soul is reborn through reincarnation, but meanwhile, the Christians believe that it is reborn when you believe in God and that you're made new. They both think that you're reborn, in a sense, in the faith, which is not common among other religions. It's really only these two and a couple others. The first record, actually, of this Egyptian faith is 4000 BC, but Christian faith can be dated to way back before 5000 BC. Okay, now on to my actual project, besides the research paper. So for my project, I built a papier-mâché tree to kind of show and demonstrate the differences between it. And so I wrote the stories of each thing that I talked about on the branches. And then I added ornaments to show you kind of where it is. And then the roots have where in the Bible that I found the comparison to it. So for instance, this is Pandora's box, Groot slaying, Bestafara, the Native American stories, and then Loki in Egyptian. So my papier-mâché tree, I constructed out of a base of paper towels, rolls and cardboard, and then taped it all together and so that it would stay, and stuffed everything with newspaper. I then created the branches and the wires out of wire and twisted newspaper around it. I then papier-mâchéed it by putting paper towels and glue and pasting that onto the tree all over, which took a lot longer than I thought it would. And then I painted it brown, and then I wrote the stories for the comparison, and then created these ornaments with the help of my mom. I had lots of failed steps. For instance, I wanted to just do a painting and paint and do a collage, but I'm not artistic, and so that quickly got thrown out the window. I also never made the deadlines. I was very late. That's okay. The tree, every time I would work on it, it would tip over. So I would paint the bottom, or I'd paint the sides, and it would just tip because it was unbalanced, or the bottom wasn't sturdy, or something was wrong. It broke a couple of times. The roots came off, and I had to glue it. It's not fun. And our glue also, we ran out halfway through, and so it was a little bit of a struggle. And then writing on this bumpy surface is a lot harder than it seems. It really, I don't think I spelled half the words on that right either, but that's okay. This project overall taught me a lot of patience and also gave me a yearning to understand other faiths and for researching it and to grow in that aspect. So to give you more of a picture timeline, the first one is the constructed base with tape all over it. The second picture is, it's hard to tell the difference, but it is paper towels, papier-mâché on it. I had to let that dry for a couple days, a day. And then the last one is it painted with all of the ornaments on it. So what? Why does this matter? So it matters because going back to my very first slide, when we don't understand others, we usually end up hating those things. When we don't understand what's going on, we usually end up hating that and because of fear. But when we compare ourselves to others, it helps us to relate and to bring love out of it and to love others. Sorry, the sinus infection's killing me. Understanding really is key for really in the entire world. My whole entire project was comparing my faith to others and seeing the similarities and also seeing the differences in it. It helps to reinforce my personal beliefs because I researched others and found what they believed and contrast it with mine and what I really struggled and had to dive deeper into the Bible to figure out what I want to believe and what I want my faith to be. So a couple of thank yous. I want to thank my parents for helping me, for my mom for helping me create these ornaments, for the art at 302, especially Miss Teresa Tucker, who helped me construct this. Miss Tucker showed me how to do it, helped me paint it. She helped me figure out my idea for this, even when I didn't think I had one. Also my mentor, Mr. Simons. And then I want to thank Miss Tyler for working with me for the deadlines, because when I say I didn't meet a single one, I really mean it. And then also to Katie Musshafen, because she gave me the idea for it. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and we had a meeting, and I was like, I don't think painting's gonna work, and she goes, hear me out. What if you paper mache a tree? And I called her crazy. Here we are with a paper mache tree. So thank you. Are there any questions? Yeah.
Which was your favorite story?
Okay, the Brazilian Bestafar one was really cool and fun. It was also terrifying, but that would probably be my favorite. Yeah, Kitty. Yeah, I would definitely say so because I can see the connection between the two and see how they all relate. And my research paper really focused on how word of mouth changed it and how they're all from the same roots and from the same thing and how they branch out into be different kind of things. Yeah, Lauren. So there are more. I also researched some different Buddhist things. I did some Asian ones. I did all over. These are just the ones I majored on because I didn't want to do a 20-page paper. Yeah, Mr. Franz. Yeah, so the Asian ones, they had a great flood, similar to the Noah one, and then also the South Africa. Wait, you said Eastern, right? Yeah, so the Asian ones was the Great Flood. I can't remember the Buddhist one exactly because that was a year ago, but it's in my bibliography. So if you want to look at that, I can share it with you. I would say there's a lot of similarities and there's a lot of human truths, universal human truths. Our middle school English teacher said that there's a theory that there's a universal back brain, something like that, and how Cinderella, how they'd never heard of Cinderella, but some Asian cultures had a version of that. And that's kind of what I was going with this, but explaining how and why that was, which leads me to the roots of the faith. Any others? Okay, thank you so much. I'll wheel my tree off.
Awesome. The tree will be over there. Yes. Perfect.
It's over. It's fine.
It didn't break. I mean, there's a bent root. That trees do that. There's just a little bit of a storm. It's kind of the epitome. It's the epitome of Aaron's day today. Religion weathers all storms. Thank you, Katie. I love it. I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Thank you, Aryn. This is actually Aryn's first day back at school. She walked into my office today, and her eyes were all swollen. And I said, "Please tell me you didn't come to school just to present today." And she said, "I kind of did." So, but here we are. So excellent. Okay, our fourth presenter of the evening is Sam. So let me start the casting on that. There we go. Okay. Did that work? No, it did not. It said it did, but it did not. Hang on. Let's stop this one. We'll just do that. Okay. I will read I can do this. I can attempt to multitask here. Awesome. There we go. All right. So our fourth presenter of the night is Sam Klingenberg. Sam's parents are Brad and Barbara Klingenberg. At Bishop Kelly, Sam is a member of the 2021 Academic State Champion and 2022 State Runner-Up varsity golf team, along with Elle. She's a link crew leader. She is the NHS Blood Drive Coordinator. She's a member of Athletic Leadership Council, the Inclusion Club, active in campus ministry, and a volunteer at the North Tulsa Learning Center. She's an active member of Life Church and a frequent volunteer at Loaves and Fishes, which she will tell you about in a minute. As of now, Sam plans to attend OU, or are you officially decided? Officially decided she will attend OU with a major in nursing and a minor in Spanish. Sam.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sam, and my project is titled Breakfast, the Most Important Meal of the Day. So when I was in about 6th grade, a little before Thanksgiving, my mom told our family that we were going to be volunteering the morning of Thanksgiving, and I'd love to tell you that I was super excited about it, but my response was, how about another day? I like to sleep in on Thanksgiving, all that good stuff, but we ended up going, and I had a wonderful time, and ever since then, my family has been volunteering at Loaves and Fishes on Saturdays, so we moved on past holidays. So now we volunteer throughout the year, and that definitely, or I knew from the beginning that I wanted my project to be community service related and something with Loaves and Fishes. And I'll tell you kind of a little bit about what Loaves and Fishes is. It's a nonprofit organization that both caters to people's physical needs, but also their spiritual needs and mental. Kind of a little normal session of Loaves and Fishes is a bunch of people will come, wait outside, get a nice hot cup of coffee, and then they will come in, and before they can get any of their food or like items that they're being given for that day, they get to hear a sermon, listen to some worship music, and I think that is definitely what sets Loaves and Fishes apart from any other organization that I volunteered at personally. So this definitely led into my research paper, which I wrote over poverty in Tulsa. I had a great opportunity to look into people's stories in my community and how they personally experienced poverty. There were some people that I knew that I didn't know that they had been going through that, and my eyes were opened in that way, and then I heard a lot of stories from strangers who had overcome that experience in their life. So for my project, I decided to do something community service related with Loaves and Fishes, and I didn't really know where to go from there, so I asked Pastor Al. Pastor Al is the kind of head over Loaves and Fishes, I would say. He, great guy, he told me that they give a lot of canned food items, a lot of those like staple donations that you would think of, but there are a few things that they really need but don't often get. One of those things is like socks, toiletries, but the one that stood out to me most was cereal. And you might be wondering, why did it stand out to you? Let me tell you. It's a non-perishable, which means it doesn't go bad, and it's something that both adults and children can enjoy. Like, I mean, when you look at cereal, you don't really go for like that healthy kind of stuff. It's more like Lucky Charms, Fruit Loops, and like you want to eat that stuff. And it's also super easy to like eat. It doesn't require preparation. You can eat it out of the box if you want. And so definitely that one. And I love cereal, so I was like, that's the one for me. So for my project, I decided to do cereal drives at some local feeder schools to Bishop Kelly. I knew I wanted to pick All Saints because that's where I went to middle school, but I didn't really have any other connections with middle schools in the area. So I went to my project mentor, Miss Babb, and we kind of figured out together to do St. Mary's and Marquette. And her, along with my mom, helped me kind of formulate an email to ask all of them if they would be willing to participate in this, and then tell them about my project. And then we also told them that we would be willing to give the winning class Chick-fil-A, like whatever class got the most amount of cereal boxes, they get Chick-fil-A. And so I actually had 2 responses. St. Mary's and All Saints both responded, but unfortunately Marquette didn't, but it's okay, you win some, you lose some. So after I picked my schools, had all the dates and stuff figured out, the next step was to kind of really get organized. I knew that I could use my mom's car, my dad's truck to transport all this cereal from one place to another, but I knew that I couldn't just throw the boxes in the backseat of a car. I feel like that's wrong. But so I knew that I needed boxes. I knew I didn't have boxes. So I reached out to 2 moving companies, All My Sons Moving and Storage and 2 Men in a Truck. They were both great. They answered when I called the first time, and they both arranged for me to go to their locations and pick up boxes that same week. So that was amazing. All My Sons in particular, they brought me into their storefront, I think, and they brought me into this big back room where there was just a ton of boxes. Like, I've never seen so many in my life. And they just told me to take as many as I wanted. And I was a bit shy, so I was like, 12? But yeah, they were so nice about it and even carried them out to my car for me. And I got talking with one of the people who work there. His name is Kevin, and he was just telling me about how occasionally people will reach out to them for things like this, and it's just his favorite thing to do, and that they always say yes anytime someone asks. And so I thought that was incredible. So the first school I did a cereal drive with was St. Mary's, and I worked with their principal, Miss Miracle, and we kind of worked it out to where the drive would be 2 weeks long. And at the end of that first week, that Friday, I went in, and that middle picture is me talking to one of the classes. I actually talked to every single class at St. Mary's about kind of what Loaves and Fishes is and why they were donating cereal, and then I just thanked them for even being willing to participate. About a week later, I went back with my mom, and I know that I'm wearing the same sweatshirt in the next photo, but it is a week apart. It's a week apart. But I went back with my mom, and we picked up all the boxes, and I got to talk with Miss Miracle, and she told me that instead of doing the Chick-fil-A, they decided to do this domino thing in the hallway. I had never heard of it before, but basically they got all of their cereal boxes in the hallway, and they took a video and let all the students get out of class to watch it happen. They just let them go down like dominoes, I guess. They enjoyed it. And then my total for St. Mary's was 187 boxes of cereal, which I thought was a lot. I still do. After that, I really realized that this was a lot of fun. So I decided to add one more drive to my list, and I chose the golf team. I talked with Coach Garrett, and she was super, super supportive about the whole thing. And she even like that day made all the team sit down and was like, okay, we're going to listen to Sam talk about her project. And I did. I talked about it and told them again all about loaves and fishes and like why this project was so important to me. And I was really happy because every single member of the golf team brought cereal, and even my little sister donated on my behalf for this one. Yes, but so the total was 43 boxes, and for a team with 10 girls plus a manager and a coach, that's a lot. So I was really happy with that. The third and final drive that I did was at All Saints Catholic School. I actually talked with my religion teacher, Miss Aris, there, and we worked out the drive so that it would just be middle school only, which again was totally fine by me. And she did want it to be a class competition with a Chick-fil-A lunch. And I was like, okay, now I got to get a Chick-fil-A lunch. And my wonderful, wonderful grandmother said that she would pay for the Chick-fil-A lunch. So she paid for the winning class to have Chick-fil-A lunch. Very, very thankful. Yes, so they did a class competition, and every day Miss Aris would send me updates. And up until that Thursday, there was still kind of around 50 boxes donated, and that's, hey, I'm grateful for anything, but I was like, oh, I just kind of wish it was more. But the next day, she emailed me, and she was like, Sam, we have 166 boxes. And I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I think she typed it wrong. I think it's 66. And I go there, and she's like, no, it's 166. And I was blown away. And when I went to pick it up, I got to talk again with some of the students there and thank them for donating over 100 boxes in one day. And they also said that they really enjoyed the Chick-fil-A lunch. So my final total was 428 boxes of cereal donated to Loaves and Fishes. And when I donated the cereal boxes, it was a couple weeks after the All Saints Drive, just so I could get everything organized and procrastinate a little bit. And we filled up my mom's car and my car, and we went on one of the Saturday services to drop them off. And what I thought was super, super cool is they immediately took them from my car and put them in the boxes or in the bags for that day. Not all of them, but some of them did go in the bags, and that's my sister packaging them up. But yes, it was super cool, and then we got to hear about all of the, how excited everyone was. Even the adults were like, oh my gosh, I got Lucky Charms. So that was super exciting. And there's a bunch of kids who go through the lines, and they were like, oh, I hope I get that box with whatever their favorite cereal was. So that was just super, super special to be able to see like all my hard work and like see people getting excited over it. So I was just amazed by that. What did I learn? I learned a lot. I learned how to plan and organize things such as this. I had never done anything like this before, so that was definitely a new experience for me. I also learned how to communicate with different people of different ages and in different like work or positions, I guess. For St. Mary's, it was all the way from like kindergarten to 8th grade. So I definitely had to change what I was saying so that every single kid understood what I was saying. And I also got to talk with so many different people around the community that I had never met before. So that was also super fun. One of the main things I learned was that there's so many ways to donate, and it's not like, and each place needs different things. Like, I'm sure what Loaves and Fishes is like in desperate need of is not like what some other place is. So I learned how important it is to ask, because they will tell you what they need. And it's super cool to really be able to provide for them in that way. And I also learned how important it is to be grateful for what I had, because I definitely never looked at the cereal in my pantry and was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness I have cereal. Like, I had never thought about that. So even like the small things in my life, I gained a new sense of gratitude for all of them. And that definitely would not have been an opportunity that I would have had if it weren't for the Brother B program. So I am very thankful for Miss Tyler and Miss Bendel for supporting me in this project, and for Miss Babb for being a wonderful project mentor, and my parents and my sister for how much they helped me. And then all of the people from the schools that helped, and along with Coach Garrett and the golf team, and Loaves and Fishes always, and all of the movers. Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes. Lucky Charms. It's gluten-free. Yes. Yes, please. It'll be so fun. Any other questions? Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Sam. Oh no. In the distraction of, did you pick up one of my papers by any chance? Okay. I'm going to walk and talk. I'm going to find it. I've got to have my stuff. I don't know where I set it down. In the distraction of the falling tree, I lost my comments. I mean, I think I could do it off the cuff a little bit for Will, but we'll see. No, I think I had it back there. I just don't know where I stuck it. That's okay. I can walk and talk. It might be underneath my jacket, maybe, like a piece of paper that has Will's name on it. Yes. Mrs. Pollard is the star. Thank you. Okay, so our final presenter for the night. He's been so patient, right? Just sitting and everybody, I love it. Making sure it works. So our final presentation for the night is Mr. Will Applegate. Will is the son of Carmen and Robert Applegate. He is the captain of the varsity cross-country team and soccer team. He's a member of Athletic Leadership Council and a Link Crew leader. He was named the Tulsa World All-World Boys Soccer Player of the Year as a sophomore, and as a junior / this year was named the Oklahoma Gatorade Player of the Year. When he's not practicing soccer, Will likes to play games with his family, play with his dogs, and in his words, hang out with Samantha Benson. He's a parishioner at St. Mary's and enjoys volunteering at the North Tulsa Learning Center because he says it's fun to interact with the kids and play with them and focus on their lives. Will has committed to play soccer as a D1 athlete at the University of Tulsa and would like to pursue a career in physical therapy. Will Applegate.
Hi, I am Will Applegate. My project, All Eyes on You, Social Media and Recruiting. A little bit about me. I am a student athlete. I will be playing soccer at the University of Tulsa, and I will be pursuing a degree in physical therapy. Before I started my capstone project, I wrote my research paper on the negatives and positives of social media within teens. And this paper is what helped to inspire my capstone project, All Eyes on You. And I've learned so much about the good and the bad of social media. And some basic facts, in a 2018 study, 95% of teens report they have a smartphone or access to one, and 97% of them do have a social media platform. 45% of teens say they are online on a near constant basis, and about 31% of them say social media has more of a positive impact. But then, on the other hand, 24% say its effect is mostly negative. On the positive sides, teens are able to express themselves. They can create growth of new ideas and make new friends, and being able to communicate with others. In times of danger or help, they are able to reach out and find support. They can also learn new skills. But some of the dangers, if a teen is online over 3 hours a day, that can lower their self-esteem. It can also distract from their work. I know it does for me, especially when I'm doing my homework. You can be sleep deprived. You can also expose your private info and post like something inappropriate without thinking. And maybe this might not affect you now, but it can affect your future and when trying to find a job. There's also disturbing images and content, as well as cyberbullying. So throughout my high school career, expectations have always been high. I know that with other student athletes. During the recruitment process, your image is just as important as your athletic ability. And when reaching out via email or text, that is one of the most important things you can do to be noticed by a college coach. And when you email a coach, they will almost always send back a questionnaire asking for your info, your email, or phone number. But they also ask for your Instagram or Twitter handle. And that really intrigued me. And I really wanted to find out what role your social media plays during the recruitment process. What story does it tell? And if it does have a role, what happens? So I became invested. Therefore, I created a survey. Mic drop. All right, so my survey had 3 questions. I emailed 96 schools and 6 coaches per school. It included 3 male sports and 3 female sports. I did this from the months of January and February of 2022, and I included D1 and D2 college coaches only throughout the U.S. This is just a template I would ask. I try to keep it short because college coaches are very busy. Some of them, it is their season for their sport, and I wanted to keep it short and sweet, but get the message across. So it'd be, hello, Coach so-and-so. When you recruit, do you check a student athlete's social media account before deciding to offer them a place on your team? I'm a high school student athlete working on my capstone project, which deals with this topic. I have a survey with only 3 short questions, and responses are anonymous. I would truly appreciate it if you took the time, less than 1 minute, to complete this short survey. And I included the link. And so these are all the schools I contacted. It just go from maybe OSU to maybe Yale or your military academies. And then some of the sports included, some of the more common sports like basketball, baseball, football, and soccer. Soccer was kind of a difficult one because some schools don't have men's soccer or girls soccer. But I also had some of the less common sports like fencing, field hockey, rugby, and some of that. So, first question. Which of these describes whether you, as a coach, check a student athlete's social media account before offering them a position on your team? And answers just went from always to never. And then I next asked, have you ever decided not to offer a student athlete a position on your team based on one of the following? If so, check all that apply. So it'd go from a social media post or just a post you like. It can just be individuals or group he or she follows, or none of the above. And lastly, I asked, which of these types of postings have prevented you or would prevent you from offering a student athlete a position on your team? Check all that apply. So answers would start out from maybe foul language or all the way to like a racist comment and or image. And then I also provided a other section so they could add in another opinion or something. So looking back on the results, I emailed over 500 coaches. I got 108 responses, which is over 20%, which, maybe it's not half, but that is a lot because coaches are very busy, and I was very pleased with the amount of responses I got. And so with the results, back from question 1, which types of these describe whether you as a coach will check, and always received almost 55%, usually was 22%, sometimes and rarely both received 11%, and never was not even 1%. Always, so coaches will usually or always check a student's social media account. That's over 75%. And so next to question 2, I asked, have you ever decided not to offer a student athlete? And a social media post received almost 62%. And just for a social media like was 14%. And individuals he or she follows was 10%. And then none of the above was 37%. That 14%, that 10%, that may not sound like a lot, but that is 10% of college coaches will not offer you a position on your team based on an image you like or someone you follow. I thought that was extremely interesting. And then lastly, I asked, which of these types of postings have prevented you or would prevent you? In foul language received 45%. Evidence of drinking was 66%. And in a post, maybe a student is just holding a red Solo cup. You know, maybe it doesn't show the alcohol, but coaches don't know that. And they're just looking at what they see. Evidence of smoking and vaping was 78%. A racist comment and image was 87%. Sexually suggestive comment / image was almost 67%. And inappropriate attire was 30%. And then I had 16% of coaches comment about some other options. And let's check in on some of those. One coach said, evidence of persistent habits we feel are not in line with our team culture, participating in gossip or complaining as an example. A video of an athlete screaming at their parents. I don't know why anyone would post that, but that's one of the reasons. Any of these types of posts, if taken to an extreme, one which I have yet to encounter, would prevent me from recruiting a student. However, in general, I allow students the freedom to act and express themselves as they see it. And then another coach said, social media is a window into what is most important to an individual. When I see that drinking, partying, or attention getting seen more important to an individual than their sports, I get very cautious about recruiting him or her regardless of talent. And I had a lot of replies like that. And then my favorite, dope smoking. I already have that one. Right. Oh, sorry. It's the same slide, but I had other ones. So emails I received personally. When I sent that email to them, some would reply just directly, and some were that. One said, social media is the biggest tool or the biggest mistake, especially prospective student athletes make these days. Another, we look at social media for prospective student athletes, and we have chosen not to offer players a position based on that. It mostly comes down to character of what you are putting out there, practically a public resume. And I love that quote. You know, it's practically a public resume, because it is. You know, you're not handing them a piece of paper. That is what they see. That's how they decide what kind of person you are. And then lastly, I usually take a look. It's nice to get a feel for what they do outside of their sport through pictures. However, a social media account usually doesn't make or break whether we offer them a spot on the team unless we find inappropriate content. So lastly, the final step. With all this information I had learned, what was I to do with it? So I went out and I taught younger athletes about what I had learned, because if I have the information, others should too. And so I talked to younger teams, soccer teams. I also talked to the freshman basketball team, and I have posters over there, but it would be about 5 minutes long. It would just be shorter of this, and I would just express to them, like that coach said, it is their public resume, because that's how they tell what kind of person you are. And so, in conclusion, I set out to find if social media plays a role through the recruitment process. The answer, it does. And so, I'd like to thank Ms. Tyler for guiding all of us through our projects, and my parents, especially my mom, for helping me, and also my dad for listening to me last night, and my mentor, Coach Alonzo. Any questions? Yes, Ms. Ballard.
Will, do you think that this also translates to colleges in general accepting incoming students and not just student athletes?
Oh, absolutely. I think, maybe not like the athletic perspective, but when you send in your resume, they also check this. And I think it's important that, especially as a big college, looking at that, that's kind of daunting, and you should definitely have something good about yourself there. Noah?
Which response surprised you the most?
Probably the video screaming at their parents, because I was not expecting that, and that is, that's pretty weird. Yes. That's a good question. I think having social media is a way for you to get to know other schools. I know looking at some like Instagram, like I follow TU's men's soccer, I'm able to learn more about their team. I think students are able to learn more through social media, but I mean, maybe not having it, you won't make the same mistakes. Yes, Sarah. I mean, maybe they won't, but if they are interested in you, they will follow you. Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Will had the whole survey and was basically done with that part of the like by May of last year. When I was meeting with people over the summer about what they needed to get done, Will walked into my office and he was like, "So I'm pretty much done. I just need to do the teaching of the stuff," which I think is awesome that's where you took it. So I had one more story that I was going to tell about that, and I just lost what it was. So it's that kind of a day. Okay, so that is our final presentation of the night. So thank you so much to the 5 beautiful students who presented this evening. I think that their projects are so interesting and they're all so varied. And you guys did such a great job. I want to give a shout out to Mr. Hembry back there on the live stream for setting up and putting all of it together. We are so grateful. The YouTube link that you all have access to, students and parents alike, at the conclusion of this presentation becomes just a YouTube link. So you can send it to whoever, and you can then fast forward and rewind it and skip and advance however you want to do this. You can watch this as many times as you want. It'll be great. So we are back next week for another set of 5 presenters, but we will be in the STC next week. That is what we kind of call our arts night. So it features some of our music composition, some documentaries, the creation of a video game, which is artsy, right? So that will be next week, same time, 6 p.m., but in the STC instead of in the Commons. And then we take a break for Thanksgiving and come back for the very final one. So thank you guys so much for coming out. Thank you to the parents, especially of these 5 students, for your support and for being here and for encouraging them to be in the program. And it has truly been a great joy to help them through this capstone project. So thank you so much. Live Jesus in our hearts forever.